the news. Hello. So this is the news. This is the news about me and my life and what's going on in my life. Out in the fields. Man walks round field, talks to camera with dog. There's the dog. Let's have a look at the dog and the view, shall we? That's a good way to start with the news. There's a man behind us looking very much like David Mitchell on one of his famed walks. I don't think it is David Mitchell, for we are not in central London, and that is where he lives. Anyway, the promised dog and view. There's the view. A bit more beautiful than me. And there's the dog, who again is a little bit more beautiful than me. Willow, come and say hello. This is Willow. She's gorgeous. We all love Willow. Yes, we do. We all love Willow. Oh, battery's low. I suspect I'll probably have to change a battery pack in a second. But there she is in all her glory. David Mitchell's coming this way, so we'll wait until he goes past. Come on, come over here. Good girl. Good girl, well done. Hello. Hello. You stay down, Willow. Stay down. Willow. Willow. Good girl. Good girl. What a beautiful dog. There she is, in all her glory, looking great, expressing herself with her ears marvellously. Willow's got a few problems. She's a bit of a terror. She doesn't really like other dogs or other people. No, she likes people. Sorry, that's a complete lie. And if I'm going to be publishing this as the news, that would be defamation, and she could sue me. No, she's a lovely dog. She just hates other dogs. I might be able to demonstrate such a thing very shortly, because we're just coming up to a garden where there's two black Labradors who she's decided she doesn't really like. But she doesn't really like any other dogs. She likes humans. I think she thinks she's a human. She wonders why she's getting hassled by all these other animals all the time. Anyway, here we are. And what is the news? What's the news today? They don't chant it like this in the real news, do they? Not in the headlines, not in the BBC, and ITV, and Channel 4. They don't go on about this all the time, do they? They don't go on chantering on. I think they've probably got more to say than me, to be honest. I think they've got like script editors and well, I was going to say journalists, but I don't think there's much journaling going on anymore. I think they're ists. They're definitely ists, but they're not journalists. They don't do the journal bit. They stopped doing the journal bit a long time ago. Now what they do is, well, it's difficult to describe really. My wife worked in public relations for a very long time, and I kind of trained in the media. I worked at the BBC once. It was a terrible time in my life. It was good in one way, but it was terrible in another. Anyway, so she worked in public relations for a long time, and 90%, and I don't think that's an exaggeration, 90% of the news that you'll see in the newspaper and on television is generated by the old public relations. So somebody else writes the copy in a public relations department or office or company, and then they send that to the news, and the news turns that into the news for your consumption. And so journalists are meant to get like they're meant to verify the stuff that they get, but I think nowadays if it comes from an official source it doesn't really need verification, so they can just regurgitate the news to you verbatim. So this is the news, but what we're doing with the news here is we're trying to make it, well I say we, I mean me, I suppose if I say we, I mean Willow, but she's just a dog, she doesn't really know what I'm doing as far as she's concerned. Frankly, I could just be losing my mind. So what we're trying to do with this, the news, is just tell you what's going on, because the news is the current events going on in the world. So over to me with the weather. Well, the weather is looking pretty cloudy, like usual, like it has done for the last 7 or 8 years, really, just kind of blanket grey cloud. I can see a tiny bit of blue sky. There might be some of that later, or it might just stay cloudy, or it might rain. Temperature quite mild, and it's not rained for a while. See, now this is the best thing about doing the news like this, is I can update you on things as they happen, and I can tell you that somebody was shouting just over in that direction. We're actually going away from the shouting, so there's unlikely to be any kind of update in that respect. Oh, I'm wrong. I can happily report there's a small child shouting to what I would guess would be the father in their garden. A small child, there's a girl and a boy, and they're shouting. I think they're shouts of joy and general joie de vie, love of life. So there you go. Some unexpected breaking news there, just coming in over the airwaves. So yeah, that's the general point. Is we're just, we're going to bring you the news as it happens. It's very specific, very localized news. It's news that's happening to me. I suppose you'd just call it. Well, I suppose you'd just call it life experience. Yeah. Because the thing about the news, and when I'm referring to the news, I'm not talking about this news. Obviously, I'm talking about the news, the mass news produced for mass consumption. I don't expect this to get any real interest. I suspect probably by now, what we're 9 minutes in, you're probably quite bored. I would be bored, to be honest. It's quite boring. I'm not bored. I'm quite enjoying myself. Oh, in breaking news, Willow's seen something to chase and she's way off ahead. I'm just going to turn the camera around so you can maybe see her run back to me. Willow! Here she comes. And another dog's heard me calling for Willow and is now vocalising its dissatisfaction. with the news, then the news, I mean not this news, the news. I've noticed recently, well, I probably think they're probably trying to do their best in their own way. They're doing their job, but I've noticed they don't seem to tell the truth very often. Now, the other thing I've noticed as well is that people who have a different opinion to what's going on in the news, well, they seem to be kind of disappearing off platforms like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Well, now I say all three of those platforms, I don't actually bother with any of those platforms. I will watch an occasional YouTube video because YouTube videos are pretty ubiquitous nowadays. It's where everyone seems to publish to if they've got a video. Well, guess what? That's where I'm going to be publishing this. But I have noticed that anyone who kind of says, I don't really believe what I'm being told in the news, they're kind of getting, I suppose the best way of putting it is censored. They're getting censored. Yeah. I suppose you'd call it censorship, wouldn't you? I suppose, like, if you look back through the years, and I think history still shows this to be the case, still shows it. If you look back through any significant, I know, like big government, I suppose you'd say totalitarian state. If you look back through any government totalitarian state in history, be it, well, the obvious one, the one that's sort of seared into many people's minds, would be Nazi Germany, but the communists, Chairman Mao over in China, I think you'd even find was the case with Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, but not just those regimes. I think of, Western democracies. They too have, in serious times of war, there's no dissenting voices that reach the airwaves, or if they do, they're rather framed as being difficult people, or weird people, or odd, or not. They're the focus of ire. They are a dissenting voice to be used to dissuade others from thinking that way. Let's put it that way. So it's not unusual what's happening with the alternative voices. It's not unusual at all, but it is significant because history shows that usually when there's book burnings or shutting down of independent news sources, or different ideas can't be discussed any longer, when speech and ideas become curtailed, as though that there is a consensus view that if you deviate from, then you are an extremist. When those things have happened historically, Usually bad things happen. Usually bad things happen. So this news that I'm bringing you now is none of that. I don't really care what the mainstream media say anymore, because quite honestly, I don't believe the mainstream media anymore. I believe events happen, but I don't believe the analysis of that event anymore. Breaking news. There are crows in the trees and they're crowing. There's quite a lot of them. If I stand here long enough, I'll piss them off and they might start dive bombing me. I found a crow here once and I tried to... Is it here? Might not have been here, but I did find a crow once in a similar circumstance where there was lots of families of crows, and the crow was injured, and I tried to rescue the crow, tried to pick it up and take it to a vet. It clearly had a damaged wing, couldn't fly, and I was dive bombed by all the other crows, sort of saying, leave our crow friend alone. So I did. I took their advice and I left said crow, and he probably got eaten by a fox. That's what I like to think happened. Purely my speculation though. Breaking news: since walking past the crows, they're no longer making their cawing sound. So it's rather beautiful out here today, despite the murky weather. I'll just give you a quick spin around. See the farm buildings over in the background. There we go. (18th of October 2020), and it's peaceful. It's peaceful and it's beautiful and the air is fresh. And that's the news. It's very still and calm. And Willow is happily just sniffing, just having a sniff about. Yeah, it's very calm. It's quite beautiful, really. It's a calm, peaceful, tranquil world. There's an aeroplane. That's the only real mechanical noise I can hear. Maybe the distant rumble of cars. There's a car. There's a van following a car. All on the road. It's a very beautiful, calm October morning here in 2020. This is the news. This is the news. This is what's going on as it's breaking. News as it's happening. A motorbike engine. News as it's happening. You see, it's all going on here, isn't it? Now listen, I know this isn't probably as interesting as the real news. Should we call it the real news? It's not real, is it? It would be wrong. It would be wrong to call it the real news. I know this isn't as interesting as the news, because, well, it doesn't have all the drama, does it? There's no drama. There's no one going, oh, this is what to think and that's what to think. But this is the news. This is the news. I've gone a bit coy because there's a dog walker coming. I'm a bit embarrassed. I've gone a bit self-conscious, which is ridiculous, really. Come here, I've got to keep an eye on Willow because she doesn't like little dogs. You wait there, good girl, wait there. Good girl. Sit down. Good girl. Hello. There's a good dog, well done. All is well. Yeah, so I know it's not as exciting as the big news, the daddy news. What should we call it? Can't call it real because it's not real. I suppose we could call it the big news. I'll have to think of a better name for it. Otherwise, we could just stick with the news because I think that's nice. But it's bollocks, really, though, isn't it? It's bollocks. It's a kind of like hypnotism. It's like hypnotism. It's the sort of hypnotism where even the hypnotist believes it. This is the news, mate. This is the news. This is what's going on. The news is what's happening in your immediate life, surely. Well, what's just happened? This is the news. Okay. I don't think I've got much more news to share with you for today, so I'm going to leave it there, as they say. Just there, right there, is where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it there, and then I'm going to go about my day. But if there's any other news to share with you, I might take my camera with me. So if any news happens, I can just whip it out and show you the news as it's happening. Like the news. It can't get better than that, can it? It cannot get better than that. For all those people who think that this is just like a trip into my ego, which it is, I don't doubt. But for all those people who think that that's that, just bear in mind that when you're watching the news or you're reading the news, you're just reading about other people's lives, things going on in other people's lives. This should hold as much interest, or albeit I admit there's a lack of drama. Willow, out of there. The news. Willow is now in someone else's garden. Willow, come out of there now. That's the worst news that's happened all day. Cyclist going past. Come here. Come here. Sit down. Land Rover going past. Cyclist going past. Oh. People looking at me like I'm some kind of... I don't know what they're looking at me like I'm some kind of... They're just looking at me, I guess. I don't need to imply anything by what they're looking at me. So let's leave it there, right there. Beautiful day. A beautiful day. And yeah, if any other news occurs in my life, I'll just whip the camera out. And yeah, and I'll upload it to YouTube, and that can be interesting. So just I think you say something at the end of the videos, don't you? So just don't bother liking or subscribing. You can do what I'm doing. Just go and get a camera, point it at yourself. You'll feel a bit self-conscious about doing it. I do, and then just upload it onto YouTube, and then we can just conglomerate together the news, and that'll be, surely that's got to be better than all that nonsense, all the nonsense that's going on now, eh? Hey, we're the news, aren't we? Hey, we're the news. Okay.